Daniel Harper was just 12 years old, but he carried the weight of the world on his small shoulders. Living in the crumbling inner city of Atlanta, he shared a tiny two-bedroom apartment with his mother and two younger siblings. His father had left when he was 5, and his mother worked endless shifts at a diner, barely scraping together enough for rent and food. Despite the hardships, Daniel's mind was a universe of possibilities. His love for computers began when he stumbled upon an old discarded laptop at a local junkyard. It didn't work, but Daniel spent weeks tinkering with it, salvaging parts until he brought it back to life. From then on, technology became his escape. At school, Daniel was known as the genius. In IT class, while his classmates struggled with basic programming, Daniel wrote advanced scripts and solved problems that left even his teacher, Mr. Wilson, in awe. "Daniel," Mr. Wilson said one day, "how do you know all this?" "Who's teaching you?" Daniel shrugged. "Nobody. I just figure it out." Mr. Wilson marveled at the boy's talent, but also worried. He knew Daniel's potential could either lead him to greatness or trouble. One night, Daniel had a strange dream. He was sitting in front of a glowing computer screen, his fingers moving rapidly over the keyboard. Lines of code streamed across the monitor. Suddenly, a message appeared. "Access granted." The screen shifted to show the name of a local bank, and then, astonishingly, the World Bank. When Daniel woke up, the dream stayed with him. It felt more like a vision than a fantasy. He didn't know much about hacking, but felt an inexplicable pull to explore the possibilities. The next day at school, he approached Mr. Wilson. "Mr. Wilson, I had this dream. I hacked into banks, local ones, and even the World Bank." Mr. Wilson's eyes widened. "Daniel, listen to me. That's dangerous territory. Hacking is illegal, and if you're caught, the consequences are severe. You have a gift, but you must use it wisely." Daniel nodded, but the words didn't ease his curiosity. At home, as he stared at the peeling paint on the walls and listened to his siblings argue over their only pair of decent shoes, the dream began to feel like a calling. Life in the Harper household was tough. Dinner was often just ramen noodles or canned beans. The electricity would occasionally cut out when they couldn't pay the bill. Daniel's mother tried her best, but exhaustion was etched into her face. One evening, as Daniel watched his siblings huddle under blankets in the cold, he made a decision. "I'm going to change this," he whispered. "We don't deserve this." But first, he needed a proper computer. Since buying one was out of the question, Daniel returned to the junkyard. For months, he scavenged for scrap metal, old circuit boards, and discarded electronics. He sold the scrap for pennies, slowly saving enough to buy a second-hand computer. With his new computer, Daniel dove into the world of coding and cybersecurity. He spent nights studying programming languages, encryption methods, and network vulnerabilities. Online forums became his classroom, and anonymous hackers his unwitting mentors. After nearly a year of relentless learning, Daniel was ready to test his skills. He chose a small local bank, reasoning that it would be less secure than larger institutions. After hours of coding and bypassing firewalls, the screen displayed, "Access granted." Daniel didn't steal any money. Instead, he logged out immediately, exhilarated by his success. But the thrill of possibility was undeniable. Daniel began hacking into other banks, moving small amounts of money into anonymous accounts he had created. He only took what he needed, enough to pay off their overdue rent, fix the leaking roof, and buy groceries. For the first time in years, the Harpers had a glimpse of stability. Daniel's siblings beamed with joy when he bought them new clothes, and his mother cried tears of relief when she came home to find the electricity back on. How did you manage this, Daniel?" she asked. "I just found a way, Mom," he replied, not daring to tell her the truth. Emboldened by his success, Daniel set his sights higher. He decided to try hacking into the World Bank. Not to steal money, but to see if he could do it. The challenge was irresistible. For weeks, Daniel prepared. He wrote complex algorithms, studied global banking systems, and practiced on simulated environments. When the night finally came, Daniel's hands shook as he typed. Hours passed, but eventually, the words "access granted" flashed on his screen. He had done it. Daniel Harper, a boy from the trenches, had penetrated one of the most secure systems in the world. But his victory was short-lived. The bank's cybersecurity team had been monitoring unusual activity and traced the breach back to Daniel's IP address. 2 days later, federal agents knocked on the Harper family's door. Daniel froze as his mother opened it. "Daniel Harper," one agent said, "we know what you've done. You hacked into several banks, including the World Bank." Daniel's mother gasped. "What are you talking about? My son would never—" "It's true, Mom," Daniel interrupted. "I did it." His mother stared at him, a mix of fear and disbelief in her eyes. The agents didn't arrest Daniel. Instead, they brought him to a conference room where several executives from the World Bank waited. "You're a remarkable young man," one of them said. "We've never seen anyone breach our system so quickly. Instead of prosecuting you, we want to offer you a job." "A job?" Daniel asked, stunned. "Yes. Work for us as a cybersecurity consultant. Help us improve our systems and catch hackers like you." Daniel accepted the offer, but on one condition. His family had to be taken care of. The bank agreed, moving the Harpers into a new home and covering his siblings' education. Under the mentorship of top cybersecurity experts, Daniel flourished. He went from being a boy who hacked to survive to a young man who used his skills for good. His story became a legend, a tale of resilience, genius, and redemption. Though Daniel had started in the trenches, his determination had lifted him and his family into a better life. And while he couldn't erase his mistakes, he had found a way to make amends, proving that even the most broken beginnings could lead to extraordinary endings.